Recording in progress.
Welcome into the latest episode of Betting the Pitch, the European Soccer Edition. I'm your host, Real_G Warner, across all social media platforms, specifically Patreon, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, if you want to look for Betting the Pitch. But Twitter is especially a good spot to reach out. We're going to go through on this late night with the Real_G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. We're going to go through the Ligue and the German Bundesliga, Ligue in France, for the last match day. As we are wrapping up a soccer season really, really quickly. These leagues getting done, they only have 18 teams, so they play 2 less matches and are finishing, I think, for both of the leagues to have the last week be their cup competitions, DFB Pokal in Germany and the Coupe de France in France. Those come next weekend, while other leagues are finishing and have played their competitions already or have other plans for them. So going to go through all the permutations, what everyone's playing for, and try to find some value in these cards. Certainly there's a lot of danger zones based on who might be on the beach, who might be preparing for their vacations, and who may actually be fighting for something. So I'll go through all that. And let's find some winners. Ultimate best bet coming end of show. We're 47-21, 69%. Nice year to date. And we're trying to improve on that. Basically pick my favorite of all betting possibilities for Germany and France. Smash them together in a 1-minute video posted at the Real_G Warner on YouTube and on Instagram. And then you can grade how this podcast went. Any of you who are here live, super late night, I appreciate it. And if you want to throw some comments in here, feel free to do so. If you're listening to this afterwards, whether you're on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, would love a 5-star review. And if you want to ask a question about it, there's also an F1 podcast, which we did today discussing the Italian, Grand Prix coming up this weekend, and plenty more. Planning to do another soccer episode covering the other leagues that we'll be playing on Sunday. So now that we're here, let's get into it a little bit deeper. Let me find where I was, and then let's start with, since the German Bundesliga is kicking off in their normal 3:30 local time, 8:30 Central, 9:30 Eastern here in the United States. I'm going to go and use the Bundesliga first, and we'll start first in the rotation numbers. We'll start with Borussia Mönchengladbach hosting VfL Wolfsburg. Currently, Gladbach quarter goal favorites at home. Almost all the juice on Wolfsburg away. Totals 3 3/4. Juice to a little bit more to under. So Wolfsburg got rid of Ralf Hasenhüttl right before the end of the season. It was going really well for a long time. I think they were really, eliminated Borussia Dortmund out of the DFB Pokal. And then the goals just dried. I think some due to injuries, some maybe because the rest of the Bundesliga kind of figured out what Hasenhüttl was doing, and it wasn't that hard to try to just say, okay, we're not going to let them counterattack us to death. They're going to sit back and defend, and we'll just keep them pinned in their own end this whole time. To me, that's been valuable for unders, and this total at 3 3/4, gigantic for Wolfsburg's side. That hasn't been looked like a goal-scoring team much unless they had Amura, one of their new signings, running all alone because he's super fast in the open field, on the open pitch, if you will. Borussia Mönchengladbach have been a great home team for years, so they've certainly not been at their best ever since they had a deep run. Potentially, I think they moved into knockout rounds in Champions League before, while they were still in the group stage or group form of the competition, not the league phase that they play now. And unfortunately, things have changed since then. Marcus Thuram got sold, and now he'll be playing in the Champions League final for Inter Milan, amongst others. But I think Jan Sommer as well on that Internazionale side as well. But this price seems pretty cheap for Gladbach, which tells me there's not a lot to play for. So let's go to the points in the table. So currently Gladbach in 10th position. They are on 45 points, could get to as high as 48 with a win here, but that would leave them tied with Werder Bremen. And unfortunately, that probably will not be a European place. It looks like Europa Conference League is 6th in the German Bundesliga at this point, though some things do change. And then we'll see what that ends up looking like for other European competitions. We'll get to probably more later. On the Wolfsburg side, they're on 40 points, can get as high as 43 with a win. They are not really in danger of being relegated. They have nothing to play for either. So That's probably why this total is as high as it is at 3.75, a gigantic number in my humble opinion, based on really the Wolfsburg side and what have happened here. But I've kind of learned through years of soccer betting that you might not want to mess with two teams that are not really playing for anything, because the really, really rigid defenses just don't really show up in that scenario. So I think for me, it's probably enough to skip this one, as I'd really only lean to VfL Wolfsburg at this point. But a quarter goal underdog with a lot of juice, with nothing to play for, away from home, when they've already just had their manager sacked. They've got a caretaker fill in place right now. I don't know if there's enough for me there to want to get involved. So move next to Sport Club Freiburg. They are hosting Eintracht Frankfurt. Currently, Freiburg quarter goal favorites at home. All the juice on Frankfurt total is 3, juice all the way to over. So Freiburg are currently in 4th position in a Champions League place, which is literally incredible. And they could only 2 points behind Eintracht Frankfurt, could potentially jump them into 3rd position. I'm not sure that matters so much. But would be amazing. Currently, Freiburg 1 point ahead of Borussia Dortmund, 4 points ahead of Mainz. So it looks like they're in pretty good position to qualify for, at the very least, the Europa League. That looks like that is clinched. But Freiburg are certainly going for this. And on the Eintracht Frankfurt side, they are 2 points ahead of Freiburg, could be passed, could be tied by Borussia Dortmund, only have a 3-goal differential advantage to Borussia Dortmund. So that's something to consider here. And I got to say, the Freiburg side have really not been goal scorers in my humble opinion this season, but they do play very well at home, and that's where they will be finishing this match day, this Spieltag this season in Germany. So that's certainly a great position to be in. In terms of talent, though, Eintracht Frankfurt are much better even after they sold Omar Mamouche. It's really hard for me to look away from a Frankfurt side that, yes, are going away from home, are pretty juiced at a quarter goal underdog, but a draw away from home will keep them ahead of Freiburg, leave them unable to be caught by Borussia Dortmund, and will be in Champions League, which they've been playing for after a great season so far, and they've always been in those positions. Total here is 3, juiced pretty heavily to over. Eintracht Frankfurt are more of a goal-scoring team than Freiburg, but at this point, to me, I feel like there's a lot riding on this game. So I'm pretty interested in those rigid defenses that I just talked about, maybe not being there for two clubs with nothing to play for, in Borussia Mönchengladbach and Wolfsburg. Here, there's a lot to be played for, so I think there's going to be more of a race to that first goal than usual. We'll move next to Football Club Augsburg hosting Football Club Union Berlin. FC Union. Currently, Augsburg quarter goal favorites with all the juice totals 2.75 juice all the way to over. When I look at the table, Augsburg currently sitting in 11th on 43 points, can't be caught by anyone. Same for Union Berlin, sitting 13th, closer to the relegation spots, but cannot be touched either. So pretty much not a lot on the line for this one, and that does make what are two really great defensive sides definitely concerns me. That they might not have as much to play for as talked about in that first matchup. Union Berlin is a quarter goal underdog away from home. Feels too cheap just because I don't trust them to score goals, and you kind of need that if you're going to, win to take a full unit, though that's not always a concern for me. Certainly need to get a result so you win at least half your bet. On the current quarter of a goal, looks like it could climb to a half. We'll see if that happens before kickoff. But Augsburg, they're not an offense that deserves to be a favorite against many teams. They've been a great bet as an underdog, and they're unders this whole season. And I don't really want to go away from that strategy, though I'm certainly waiting to see if this 2.75 all the way juiced to over will climb to 3, because I think that push on 3 is very valuable. We'll move next to Borussia Dortmund hosting Holstein Kiel. Currently, Dortmund a 2.5 goal favorite with almost all the juice at home in the Borussia Park, or Signal Iduna Park, I guess now. Over-under is 4.25, juice all the way to over. It's been moving around from 4.5 to 4.25. And Dortmund clearly have a lot to play. With their budget, they need to get in Champions League. They're 1 point behind Freiburg, 3 points behind Eintracht Frankfurt. And it's going to be tough for them to get there because those two teams play each other. A draw is probably a great scenario for Dortmund, because then they win and they can leap over Freiburg into Champions League. But there's a lot on the line here. Unfortunately, on the other end, we have Holstein Kiel, who are relegated and cannot reach Football Club Heidenheim on 29 points in 16th. So there's not a lot for them to play for. They've been pretty bad. They can score goals, which has been a little bit surprising for a Schweizerliga side coming up to the German Bundesliga, especially in their first season in the top flight in the German Oberhausen in its club's history. But it's just, I don't think there's anything I want to get involved with here, especially for if there's ever a time you can guarantee motivation for Dortmund, it is right now to make sure all those players are still in that club. Because if not, and they don't make Champions League, I don't know what's going to happen to the squad. I don't know. Late night with the real Discord, you wanted the odds are back. I don't know really what's going to happen there. And I'm sure Dortmund don't want to see that end up occurring. We'll move next to St. Pauli. 1-goal favorites at home to VfL Bochum. Total is 3. Juice more to the under and more juice on the Bochum 1-goal underdog. It's a big price for St. Pauli, who are Schweizerliga promoted as well. Won the Schweizerliga last season. Promoted directly to German Bundesliga. Have not been able to score goals all season, but they've defended really well. And now they are almost safe. I mean, they are on negative 11 goals. So 3 points ahead of Football Club Heidenheim, tied on goals or tied on points with TSG Hoffenheim with a 7-goal advantage. So pretty much are safe, barring. But I think there's a difference between you are mathematically safe and you are safe barring some crazy miracle. And I think that will determine or at least inspire some performance, some effort. You might not see these players giving up just yet. VfL Bochum, they're finishing bottom of the table unless they have a huge surge in goal differential, which could happen if Kiel get blasted at Borussia Dortmund. But Bochum, after a miracle to stay up last season, will be going down to the Schweizerliga, which is probably deserved at this point because they've been literally dodging the relegation for years and years. And we're down 3-0 after the first leg of the relegation, the relegation playoff in Germany last year, and somehow turned it around and kept Fortuna Düsseldorf in the Schweizerliga. But it's hard for me to I mean, Bochum have been bad away from home for years. Their home form is what's kept them in the league. It's not clearly going to do that this year, but I think my biggest interest here is under 3 goals. Just, I think Bochum, they're going to give a last big effort. St. Pauli have not been able to score goals all season. There is some concerns for me, though, if you're playing unders with teams that don't have a lot to play for. And St. Pauli, they do seem like they are fighting for something, though. It might even be one of those things that they get some score updates that they'll feel safe. But probably you don't know that for sure. So St. Pauli is a big favorite. It's certainly something I'd like to be against. I don't trust Bochum to score goals. So finding 4 goals in this one seems pretty tough. So I like under 3, St. Pauli hosting Bochum in Hamburg. Move next to RB Leipzig hosting VfB Stuttgart. Currently Leipzig a half-a-goal favorite. Choose to split both ways. Totals 3 3/4. Choose very heavily to under. Leipzig currently sitting in 7th position, tied in points with Mainz 05, 6 behind in goal differential. So they probably need to outdo the result of Mainz to make sure they get into a Europa Conference League position. And if they don't, I mean, they've already sacked their manager, but there's probably a lot of things that change. And amazing to see Jurgen Klopp come into a club that might not even be in Champions League, Europa League, or the Conference League. Might be a little lonely just doing Bundesliga stuff, but you never know. He might be the next manager in East or Lower Saxony, I think is the state. But or state equivalent of what would be in the U.S. Now, Stuttgart on the other side, I mean, had an incredible season in the Bundesliga last year, finished 2nd, made Champions League, and then couldn't handle really the 2 competitions. So I thought were really impressive in Champions League, just seemingly collapsed late in matches like they did to Real Madrid, a game they should have won and ended up losing, getting no points. And then it really hurt their Bundesliga form. They're currently sitting 9th. They can get up to 50 points if they beat Leipzig, but that will not be enough to even touch Leipzig. And unfortunately, Werder Bremen's still a point ahead of them. So they're on the outside looking in. Doesn't look like there's a lot to play for. And RB Leipzig, they have something to play for. Plus, they probably feel a little bit like Stuttgart ruined their season as they are headed to the DFB Pokal final. Instead, Stuttgart are. I would imagine Stuttgart will probably play their best players, trying to keep them tuned up for the DFB Pokal final next weekend. But there's a fairly good chance that they are substituted or they take some of their more important players off at 60 minutes or something to not get them hurt or damaged for the next weekend's final, which is their ticket to the Europa League. Because if they beat a third tier, Liga, I believe, side in Arminia Bielefeld, they will be able to find an automatic berth to the Europa League, which would be huge for Stuttgart, especially since they are out of the running now. So probably not a lot to play for. It makes this 3.75 total gigantic number less of an interest for me to play under. Again, same sort of story as we talked about already. Leipzig might even have some value as a half a goal favorite, but with draws and no overtimes, I'm not backing favorites unless I feel really good about them. And certainly Leipzig have not done enough to deserve that, even on their home patch where they've been really good for years. Move next to Mainz 05, the quarter goal favorite at home to Bayer Leverkusen. Currently, all the juice on Leverkusen right now might be falling towards pick'em. Total's 3.25, and the juice is split both ways. Leverkusen, just an awful season. They were so lucky to win the Bundesliga last year, though they were undefeated for every match until the Europa League final, which was a nice winner for your boy and everyone who's following along, especially my Patreon subscribers, patreon.com/thereal_G Warner. We were all in Atalanta, and that was a great day. Adamo Lookman, what a day he had. But Leverkusen, I mean, I like them coming into the year. Just didn't feel like Bayern Munich would be very dominant and it would be a much closer race. But Leverkusen did everything they could to fall out of the DFB Pokal, out of Champions League against Bayern Munich directly, and then also to lose the Meisterschale to Bayern. Well, they've got nothing to play for. They're finishing second. Bayern have already won. So it's really hard to say that there's much going on the Leverkusen side. So if Mainz move down to a pick'em, I'm very interested in Mainz. They are fighting for something here, trying to hold on to a European position, which is crazy from where they've climbed from. I think league bottom a few seasons ago and somehow ended up staying up, not even in a relegation playoff, and have been great all season. They're an intense club. They have the desire that Bayer Leverkusen haven't shown, coming off maybe the downfall or what happens when you win an unexpected title and people get complacent or what have you. But Mainz are the side I'm looking for here. We certainly want to see them move to a pick'em, but we don't have that just yet. We'll move next to TSG Hoffenheim, 1.25 goal underdogs at home to Bayern Munich. All the juice on Hoffenheim, totals 3.75, juice all the way to the under. So Hoffenheim, they are in 15th position on 32 points. They're 6 goals in differential ahead of Heidenheim, with 3 points ahead as well. So scenarios where somehow Hoffenheim drop into the relegation or the relegation playoff in Germany could happen if they get smashed by Bayern at home and Heidenheim win in the next match we'll discuss at home to Werder Bremen, and they're try to stay out of any sort of jeopardy type of last match. I think there's, certainly any Bayern Munich can crush anybody. They have some of the best talent out there. I don't know what they're really playing for. They're 11 points ahead of Bayer Leverkusen and have no real interest in this one. So that's a great position to potentially back TSG Hoffenheim. The hard part is Hoffenheim have been so bad. They sacked Pellegrino Matarazzo, American manager, maybe for good reason, but I feel like he was way more competent than some Austrian guy from Sturm Graz who's come in and done nothing but barely stayed up because the bottom of the Bundesliga has been so bad. But the situation certainly favors TSG Hoffenheim. I like that goal and a quarter, and I don't know that I want much to do with the total, but 3.75 is a gigantic number for Bayern Munich side that have no need to care about this match because they have nothing to play for, nothing to look forward to until the Club World Cup here in the United States next month. Last but not least, we'll go to Football Club Heidenheim. They're quarter goal favorites to Werder Bremen. All the juice on Bremen away. Totals 3.25. Juice slightly more to under. And this is going to be one of those scenarios where Heidenheim don't have a great home field advantage. It's not a big stadium by any means, but they certainly will have a crowd. They'll be fighting to try to keep them or try to find a way to win this match to get them out of the relegation, the relegation playoff. Can't be caught by Holstein Kiel or Bochum. They are down and guaranteed relegated. So that is, I guess, a little bit comforting. They don't have to look over their shoulder, but they are ticketed for the relegation unless they get a huge win first. They must win, but then they need either a significant loss from Hoffenheim or a big win themselves or some combination to reverse at least 5 goals, at least 4 goals, because they would need Hoffenheim to lose and them to win. So that'd be at least 1 goal in each direction. So possible, certainly very possible. The problem is Werder Bremen have something to play for. Currently sitting 8th. They are on 48 points, could tie both Leipzig and Mainz if they are able to win. I don't know if that'll get them based on their goal differential. They're 12 behind Leipzig and 18 behind Mainz. So that's a good position for Heidenheim because it's going to be really hard for Werder Bremen to overturn goal differentials. So that might mean that Heidenheim are fortunate. Werder Bremen are conceding, though certainly they get more money for finishing higher in the German Bundesliga final table. Not sure if that matters to the players, though. I can't imagine that filters through to their pockets too much. But that does make any sort of interest in backing Werder Bremen feel a little bit foolish because they don't have as much to play for as the home team. They are on the road, and those things are not good combinations. I think initial lean would have been to Werder Bremen as a quarter goal underdog, despite all the juice. I think it's another scenario where I'd love to get a pick'em on Heidenheim, especially as a home team that needs to win, and you push on a draw. But the total at 3.25 is probably my biggest interest there. But I think it's probably something I'll easily let slide through and not take up or not touch because I just don't think there's enough there for me. So in terms of the ultimate best bet coming from the German Bundesliga before we get to French Ligue 1 and then a briefer than normal Friday night podcast is I think you got to look for who has something to play for, and unders with teams that don't have anything to play for does seem a bit concerning, especially considering that you don't really want to see teams that I think with unders, it's usually teams fighting to the death because 90 minutes and plus 10 or so in stoppage time is a lot to defend. But for me, I think Freiburg are in a tough position because they need to win. They are at home. They've gone, and I've definitely lost on them last match of a season when they threw everything forward to try to find their way into the Europa League and ended up conceding like an empty net goal from midfield or something that sticks out in my brain. And Eintracht Frankfurt, they're 22 goals differential ahead of Freiburg. Freiburg routinely get massacred by the big clubs and really hang on to win close wins against everyone else. So I think that's a good situation for Frankfurt. I do want to see what the lineup looks like. As weird as it sounds, I think the most direct, there's nothing to play for versus everything to play for. It's TSG Hoffenheim to try to avoid the relegation. So I'll take Hoffenheim, a 1.25 goal underdog, as my best bet for the German portion of this last episode, the last Spieltag from the German Bundesliga. So now we'll move to French Ligue 1, and I'll go through those similar situations to the German Bundesliga, and then we'll be doing the other, probably more popular leagues coming up on tomorrow's podcast if everything goes fine there. We'll start in France with Lille hosting Stade de Reims. Currently, Lille 1.25 goal favorites with more juice. Totals 2.75 juice more to the over. Now, Lille are currently sitting in 5th position on 57 points, tied with Strasbourg and tied with Nice. So a lot could happen here. They are certainly playing for climbing that table to either find a way into Champions League or we'll see. On the other side, Stade Reims, they are in 14th position on 33 points and could be jumped by Le Havre for that final because Le Havre are currently in a relegation playoff position. Nantes are ahead of them by 2 points, but still tied on the same amount of points as Reims with 3 better goal differential in the Stade de Reims way. Nantes play Montpellier, bottom of the table, already relegated, disaster clubs. So that's really tough, and they certainly need to be afraid of that. Le Havre, on the other side, they do play on the road at Strasbourg, so that's a little bit better. But Reims need to play, and they need to win to avoid any sort of thing here. If they draw, then the worst that Le Havre could do was win, and it's such a lopsided goal differential that I think a draw does play for Reims. But that's still a tough thing to do on the road. The Stade Pierre-Mauroy, I believe, in Lille. And Lille are really good, even if they haven't played as well as they did in Champions League earlier this season. I think Reims getting more than a goal is of interest to me, but it might be one of those that I'm able to skip. We'll move on to the next match, and that's Nice hosting Stade Brestois. Currently, Nice 1.25 goal favorites to Brest with all the juice right now. Totals 3, juiced all the way to over. So Nice currently sitting 4th, tied with Lille, ahead of them on goal differential, tied also with Strasbourg, 3 ahead of Lyon. On the other side, we have Stade Brestois. They're an 8th on 50 points, but they can't catch Lyon. They're 1 point ahead of Lens. Not a lot to happen there, I don't think. From a Nice perspective, they've scored a ton of goals all season, and they have something to play for. Brest, I guess, to finish in a better league position. That's really not a strong thing to talk about at this point in the season. So I think that's one of those, especially with Brest away from home. I'll look forward to them hopefully being a much better team fighting against the odds without Champions League, though that was definitely profitable backing them on midweeks all season long. Move next to Lyon, hosting Angers. Currently Lyon 2-goal favorites at home, more juice on Angers away. Totals 3.5 and juice more to the over. Now, Lyon, as already mentioned, they're on 54 points, 3 points behind Strasbourg, Lille, and Nice, and they need to get into some sort of league position that gets them into Europe because they are really strapped for cash. On the other side, Angers are on 36 points. They are 3 points ahead of Reims, 3 points ahead of Nantes, and cannot be caught by Le Havre in that relegation position. So that means I think Angers are celebrating another season in Ligue 1. Congratulations to them after they were one of the worst teams in Ligue 1 history just a couple seasons ago. Big question is how much do they care? I would say not a lot. So no interest for me in under. Probably over, if anything, but I don't know that Angers will even show up to help that scoreboard, and I don't want to bet for Lyon to get 4 themselves. Move next to Nantes. Jose Montpellier, as already mentioned, but Nantes goal and a quarter favorite. All the juice on Montpellier, totals 2.5, all the way to over. So Montpellier, they have half the points of the next closest team to them. Brutal. But Nantes, they are only 2 points ahead of that relegation playoff. They want to stay out of it as much as they can. I don't know who's backing Montpellier in this situation. Numbers climbed to half of a goal since I've been watching it, so that's probably one I can skip. A lot to play for on Nantes' side, and I do like them as a squad. They certainly are way better than their point total suggests. I'll move next to Marseille hosting Rennes. Currently, Marseille 3/4 goal favorites with all the juice. Totals 3.25, juice more to the over. So Marseille, they're sitting in second position on 62 points ahead of the kit time wearing Monaco by 1, cannot be touched by Nice, Lille, or Strasbourg. So they are safe in Champions League position, and it's important for Marseille, especially coming off of no Europe this season. On the other side, we have Rennes, who are sitting in 11th, nothing to play for on 41 points, can't be caught, can't go to Europe, can't do anything. So there's not a lot for me to play with there. It does feel like Rennes are getting a fair amount of respect. I'm not sure they deserve it, but Marseille, you could argue, I mean, they're just holding off Monaco for league position, so it might not matter so much. I'll move on to Saint-Etienne hosting Toulouse. So Saint-Etienne, they're one of the French giants, went down a couple seasons ago, I believe, with Angers, did come back this season, but are currently sitting 30 points to their name in 17th position out of 18 clubs in French League. At the very least, they need 1 point to get out of a relegation position, but they're 5 goals differential worse than Le Havre, so they need to better Le Havre's result. Likely, if Le Havre win, they will be going down, unfortunately, unless there's some situation with Nantes or Reims where Saint-Etienne can overturn a goal differential, which seems impossible. So Saint-Etienne need to win, and they're a favorite to a Toulouse side that are in 12th on 39 points, can't be caught, can't go to Europe, nothing to play for. So that would make Toulouse probably ineligible for me to want to play them as an underdog. And Saint-Etienne, they've been good at home. I think as a pick 'em at home, I'd be interested, but don't see that yet, and only giving out current lines on the Betting Pitch podcast. So not much for me to do here. We'll move on to Strasbourg hosting Le Havre. So Le Havre, they need a win at the very least to get them out of the relegation position, though Stade Reims and Nantes, if they win, Le Havre's result won't matter, but a win will keep them away from Saint-Etienne no matter how good of a result they have. There's a lot of risk here because Le Havre are on the road at a really tough Strasbourg side who do have something to play for. They're sitting on 57 points in 6th position, tied with Lille and Nice, going all the way up to 4th. And they are trying to hold off Lyon, who are 3 points behind them with 4 goals better differential, and Lyon, a 2-goal favorite. So a team that's already maintained their position in Ligue 1 for a second consecutive season. So I think there's a lot that needs to come for Strasbourg here. They're a big favorite. They probably deserve to be, but I think Le Havre have a lot to fight for, and that's something I'm definitely interested in. Though certainly Strasbourg have it too. I lean to Le Havre getting a goal and a quarter. I lean to under 3.25 because that's the match style that Le Havre play. I'm probably more interested in under the total being the best way for Le Havre to have a chance. But if they start to lose, that does put things in big, big problem territory because Le Havre will have to push forward and will have to go for goals, especially if Saint-Etienne are winning and they are losing. Moving next to PSG hosting Alger. Currently PSG 2.5 goal favorites. Almost all the juice on Alger away. Totals 3 3/4. Juiced all the way to over. PSG have won this league. They have Champions League to look out for, the Champions League final, which is important to them and something they need to certainly be as ready for as possible. And I think we might see more starter play than maybe expected. Just because they need to have them ready. Maybe the second half would probably be possible. But I think they play probably 60 minutes and then come off at least 5 of those, and or however they can do it. Alger currently sitting in 10th position, got nothing to worry about, so they're safe, and it's probably not a side I want to deal with going to the Parc des Princes, which has been a really tough place to play in the French Ligue 1 or in Champions League. Just ask, I don't know, everyone who's lost them so far this season. Last but not least, in Ligue 1 in France, we have Lens, a half of a goal underdog at home with almost all the juice to Monaco. Totals 3 1/4, juiced all the way to under. So Monaco could pass Marseille for second position. Maybe that matters. Probably not so much. Not enough for me. They are 4 points ahead of Nice, Lille, Strasbourg, all those 57 pointers. So they are pretty much safe. Hard to say that they have a lot to play for. You could argue that Lens on 49 points don't have anything either, just to try to, I guess, finish above Stade Brestois in the French League on table. With that said, Lens play very well at home, so I am always going to be interested in them. I think the total at 3 1/4 is pretty large, but also reflects two teams with nothing to play for. So that's probably something that won't make my card, but I am somewhat interested in that just because it's a really tough place to play. And Monaco, while they're used to playing without much of a home crowd advantage, it's different being a favorite away from home. So for the ultimate best bet on this episode, I think I got to pick a French nomination to then go with the German Bundesliga. And then, of course, I will check for any comments to see if we can get something to come up with. I think Le Havre, they play to me a style that just doesn't see a lot of goals. I think the under 3 1/4 is a little bit more valuable than the plus 1 1/4 on the road team, just because I'm not sure Le Havre will score. And I think Strasbourg will sit in a position to defend if Le Havre are coming at them. Strasbourg have the lead and they're trying to maintain their hold on a European position. So I'll go Le Havre under 3 1/4 goals. My best bet from France. And it's almost time for the ultimate best bet. Let's make sure that I don't have any late night people in here commenting. I wish you did, but thank you for coming. Those that you hear that were here earlier, I don't think you all hung out, but it's been a good run, been a good season, and stay tuned for the next episode. There is an F1 episode out there, by the way, before we get to ultimate best bet. And we did a baseball betting episode for covers, or for pregame.com. That's where I work, but they are unfortunately, I guess, outdated at this point. So I guess just look for F1 if you're looking to bet the Emilia-Romagna coming up on Saturday, Sunday of this weekend. Certainly look out for that in this podcast feed, Betting the Pitch, Apple Podcasts, and on Spotify, or at @the_Real_G Warner on YouTube. So time to do this ultimate best bet. So let's get into it. It's super late. Hey, this is Real_G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. This is the ultimate best bet for the Betting the Pitch podcast. We went through the German Bundesliga and Ligue 1 in France for the last day, final match day of this campaign. Picked out ultimate best bets from each of the leagues, and we nominated together, pushed them together. We're 47-21, 69%. Nice year to date. And in this episode, we went in the Bundesliga. Favorite bet is TSG Hoffenheim, a 1 1/4 goal underdog to Bayern München. In Ligue 1 in France, I like Le Havre under 3 1/4 goals on the road at Strasbourg. But for the ultimate best bet on this episode, I'm going to stick in France. It is a later match, so hopefully we'll give you all a little bit more time to get that in. But Le Havre, they're fighting for their French top flight lives. Strasbourg fighting for Europe, and I think we see a defensive game, which we won't see that across most of the leagues this weekend. So I'll go Le Havre at Strasbourg under 3 1/4 goals for the ultimate best bet on this episode. And that'll do it. Thank you all for tuning in. I will see you on the next one, likely soccer episode tomorrow night at some point. And stay tuned. Had a really good month so far of May in baseball. So check that out. Patreon.com/Real_G Warner if you're looking for more plays across all sports. Still trying to figure out how to get my underdogs to the window in Stanley Cup playoffs. But Patreon.com/Real_G Warner if you're looking for some volume. And I will see you all very soon. Thanks for the support. And if you leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, it'd be huge for the search rankings.
Recording stopped.